Hi, and here we are once again with another episode of Unstoppable Mindset, where inclusion, diversity, and the unexpected meet. And in case you really don't know, the reason the subtitle is that way is that when we talk about diversity, very rarely does anyone ever talk about disabilities. So I put inclusion first because if people say they're inclusive, they can't get away with leaving out disabilities. How's that for a philosophical attitude? But anyway, there we are. Today, we have as a guest Lino Martinez, who is a really neat person I've gotten to know over the past few months, and we've chatted a little bit more today. And he has an interesting story to tell for a lot of reasons, and I'm going to let him do most of it, and I'm going to sit back and listen and just butt in if I really need to. So, Lino, I want to welcome you to Unstoppable Mindset. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. It's such an honor. Thank you so much.
Well, I really appreciate you coming, and I know you and I are going to do an episode of your podcast called A Little Less Fear later in the month, so that'll be fun. So we'll have to talk about that. But why don't you start by telling us about kind of the early you and kind of where you came from? And I'm interested to hear more about this Muckle Wells Syndrome. I've never heard of it before, but I'll leave you tell it in your way.
Okay, thank you so much. So yeah, basically, let's see here. Well, I was born in East Los Angeles in January of 1980, and I was born 2 months early as an emergency C-section baby for my mother. The cord was wrapped around my neck. Now, I used to joke about this, and I used to say, well, it looks like I was trying to hang myself, commit suicide in the womb because I knew what I signed up for, and I didn't really want to be born. But I mean, lo and behold, I was born early, and shortly after I was born, within 6 months, I started having health issues, a lot of body spasms, a lot of tummy aches, and I was in and out of hospitals ever since I was a little kid. So, the way that the disease presented itself was a lack of me growing. I wasn't thriving at all. I was a very skinny little kid, and I'm very tiny, petite. And I had a severe stomach pains, and I was always in the hospitals, and that's really how I spent a lot of my life. And it really wasn't until I was 36 years old where they finally diagnosed me with a rare genetic disease. I'm not sure
Wow.
if you want me to jump from birth to 36 years old because a lot happened in between all of that. But to make the long story short, what the disease does is it causes inflammation throughout my entire body. Now, all disease is inflammation. Even having a headache is an
Yeah.
inflammation. But this disease specifically has a mutation in the genetic mutation called NLRP3 genetic mutation. And so when that is activated, it causes a war with all parts of my body, every
Mm.
organ, every nerve. And so when there's constant inflammation in the body, in your nerves and your organs, things start to dysfunction and they start to overreact. One of the doctors said that the disease is a drama queen. So yeah, quite literally.
Don't you love doctors with great
Yeah,
medical descriptions?
right.
But it really probably makes sense.
Yeah, so let's say that, and it could be triggered by anything. It could be triggered by stress. It could be triggered by an emotional stress, physical stress, even an injury. Anything can cause this disease to activate, and it can present itself in countless ways, from migraine headaches to paralysis.
Mm.
And so, in my case, since it took so many years to diagnose, it led to paralysis, and paralysis in my motor nerves and my peripheral nerves. And the paralysis began in my pelvic area. And basically, I wasn't able to pee. I wasn't able to go pee like a normal person
Mm.
does, starting as early as 26 years old. But by the time doctors figured out what was going on, that my muscles weren't working, that there was a lot of inflammation in the bladder, that the bladder was hardening, by that time there was no salvaging of my bladder. And so after about 15 surgeries, it was not salvageable. And by the time I was 33 years old, I had a complete, what's called a radical cystectomy, which is a
Hmm.
complete removal of my urinary bladder. And they did a complete reconstruction using about 60 inches total of my small intestine, my appendix, and removing my urethra and cutting my kidney tubes, in which took about 5 years to heal. So it was quite an adventure, and there's a lot of suffering involved in that. But I came out on the other side stronger than ever.
Wow. So you just really wanted to get the attention of the doctors, right?
I guess so, right? I was a challenge. I'll tell you that much. I was a big challenge for them.
It certainly sounds like it. Well, so what was it like for those first 26 years going through obviously having a lot of issues and so on, but you clearly went to school and other things like that. So tell me a little about that.
Yeah. So by the time I was 26, I had my master's in psychology and my bachelor's in communication. I was doing very well. I do have my doctorate in clinical psychology, and I graduated when I was 30. That was back in 2010. I'm 43 now.
You
And
graduated with what in
my
2010?
doctorate in
Your
clinical
doctorate.
psychology.
Wow,
Yeah,
cool.
back in 2010. But from the first 26 years, yes, I was definitely going to school a lot, getting a lot of good grades, but I was also sick in between. So I was constantly
Yeah.
going to doctor appointments, and they couldn't find anything, quote unquote, wrong with me at the time. But I
Mm.
knew there was something going on. There was something different that, and I could just feel it. I could just feel that I wasn't your average person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, where did you go to college?
So yeah, I got my bachelor's at Cal State San Bernardino in mass
Hmm.
communication,
Okay.
and I got my master's at the Chicago School, and I also got my doctorate at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology, the Los Angeles campus.
Well, and as you pointed out earlier, we should tell people you're in what, Pasadena now. So you're really not all that far from us, just a hoot and a holler away.
Yeah, I'm in Pasadena, California. Lovely sunny Pasadena.
Yeah, and it is today. So there you
Oh,
go.
the heat is on, Michael. The heat is on.
This is August 2nd when we're doing this recording, and it was 95 out here today.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So
That's
there
about
you
what we,
go.
we're getting over here too. Yeah.
Wow. But so it seems like 30 as an age to get your doctorate. That is certainly not by any standard unusual. And so good for you to go off and do that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Did you start a practice or what?
I was unable to practice. I was unable to get licensed because I started having a lot of surgeries 2 years
Ah,
prior to graduating. Luckily, the faculty and all of the professors worked with me while I was in hospitals, in and out of hospitals, so I was able to complete my dissertation within years of after graduating. And it was from the time that I graduated to about 40 years old that I had over 40 surgeries to save my life. And
wow.
so I even missed the whole Facebook era. I never even had a Facebook. I still don't because that was very popular back then, and I was too busy wired up to machines and tubes coming out of my body. So I also had a feeding tube for 8 years, and I also lost my voice, my ability to speak for 2.5 years. I also wear hearing aids. So the journey continued with this disease up until I was approved by my insurance for immunosuppressant medications. And when I finally got on immunosuppressant medications, my voice started to come back very slowly, one vocal cord at a time.
Wow.
And yeah, so here I am thriving finally.
Well, you certainly sound like you are, and
Thank you.
you're hopefully done with the surgeries for a while.
The last surgery I had was about 6 months ago, and it was because I had a CT scan of my kidneys, and they thought they saw some stones, but when they went in there, they didn't find anything. So luckily, I really feel that I'm for reals this time gonna live the rest of my life disease free.
That is so cool. And you are clearly a person who sounds very positive about all of it.
Thank you.
And,
It took a lot of
you
work
sound
to
like
get here.
it really did. So, any other things that you want to talk about regarding medical issues and all that?
To be honest with you, it was very challenging losing my voice. I mean, losing my bladder was a challenge in itself, but losing my voice because I also sang mariachi when I was a teenager. I was a
Ah,
singer, and so when I all of a sudden couldn't speak, and it even hurt my vocal cords to even breathe because your vocal cords expand when you breathe. So even breathing hurt. So I was really bedridden for that amount of time. But I went to sign school and learned sign language because I wasn't going to give up. I have to keep communicating somehow.
ah,
But that time I became very depressed. So I went from physical ailments to now it hitting my mental health. And it hit my mental health because I thought, what am I supposed to do with my life? I lost my ability to pee. I have a feeding tube. I can't speak. I'm losing my hearing. I'm wearing trifocals on my glasses. Like I don't know what else is gonna go next. It seems like every organ was going. I was on high doses of heart medications for an incredible rapid heart rate. So I was really bedridden for a very long time, and I wasn't sure if I was going to make it. But one thing that I do want to reveal is that I'm transgender. I lived the first 34 years of my life as a female. And I also knew at the time that if I didn't transition, I was going to die in the wrong body and I was going to die inauthentically. And so when I decided to finally get on hormonal replacement therapy, other things started to align, even my purpose in life. So when I was in this, what I call the dying stages, because this disease was taking my life very slowly,
Mhm.
I looked on the brighter side and saw that now my gender was aligning with what felt the best alignment for my spirit in this life, and that was a masculine energy. And even though at the time I didn't have a voice and I didn't know what I would even sound like as a man, because part of becoming a man was being able to sound like a man. And now I wasn't even going to sound like a man, but at least I was looking like one. And at
Mhm.
least I was feeling like one. And so when I was getting into this alignment of my feeling masculine, other things started to align because I started to experience more self love. And when I experienced more self love, other joys started opening itself to me and presenting itself as different avenues in my life.
Did becoming a man, though, in any way medically help the whole healing process and getting you through a lot of the surgeries or lessening them? Did anything become simpler, or was it really totally unrelated?
It became simpler. It became simpler because I was more authentic with myself. It's kind of like it's kind of like this. This is the only way I could explain it. Let's say that somebody tells you, "Hey, Michael, just for the next 3 years of your life, you're gonna be called Jane. Wherever you go, your name is Jane." Now you know you feel like Michael, and you feel like your body feels like Michael. You can
Mhm.
feel yourself as Michael, but all of a sudden you have to be Jane for the next 3 years. So being Jane for the next 3 years is not going to feel authentic to you, and in that you start to present yourself differently in a different manner. And you start to feel insecure. So I lived my life with such insecurity. So when I
Mm.
finally transitioned to my full self, there was less insecurity. And with less insecurity means there's less fear. And when there's less fear, that means there's more love. And when there's more love, there's more opportunity.
And with all of that, there's a whole lot less stress, and that had
Exactly.
to help in the healing process. Physiologic,
Absolutely.
yeah, physiologically, did it make life easier just to be a man instead of a woman, or did that help just from a standpoint of actual physiological sorts of things? Did the insides of your body becoming a male as opposed to a female make any difference?
What made a major difference is that I decided to have a lot of surgeries to better align my body physically as a man,
Got it.
and I wasn't intimidated at all because by now, Michael, I had over 20, 30 surgeries to save my life. So what it's not a big deal to have my breast removed at this point. It's not a big deal to have a hysterectomy, and it really wasn't. And I'm sorry for listeners if they're listening for the first time and if it triggers them for me to say that it was nothing to have a double mastectomy or that it was nothing to have a hysterectomy. This isn't in any way to hurt anybody's experiences with whatever they may have experienced, but for me personally, it was freedom. For me
Mhm.
personally, it was not painful. There was joy involved with that. And it better aligned me. When I touched my chest and the breasts were gone, it felt like this is me whole. This is who I am.
Well, the other part about it is just listening to you. Clearly, you're very confident about yourself today. And as I said, with all the things that have happened, a whole lot less stress, and that has to help the confidence. I'm actually writing. We're in the middle of writing a book about fear, and the idea behind it basically is that the biggest problem with fear is everyone thinks you can't control it. It's all biological, and that's all there is to it. But the reality is, you have control over fear, or can learn to control fear, so that you can make it a very powerful tool as opposed to a negative thing in your life. And of course, my story of being in the World Trade Center on September 11th and the things that I learned that prepared me, although I didn't know it at the time, but prepared me to be able to deal with the emergency of what happened that day and getting out and so on, um, was all about creating a mindset that I only later realized got created, which was fear is not really the problem. There are some things you can control and some things that you can't. And what we need to focus on are the things that we can. And one of them is really the whole issue of fear. We don't need to be afraid of everything, even unexpected things that happen in our lives, if we prepare.
Yes. And a lot of the times it's hard to prepare to not be in fear because our instincts and as you were saying a lot physiologically our body will respond with increased cortisol levels, stress hormones when fear presents itself. But fear in general as an emotion is the complete opposite of love. And in life, there's only two emotions, fear and love, because all negativity is the derivative of any negative feeling of any negative thought is fear. And so when you can break that down and see, well, why am I feeling negative about this? What's the underlying fear? There's a fear with every negative emotion. There's an attachment to it. And when you see that life is only two major emotions, love and fear, you can start leaning more towards love. And when you start leaning more towards love, there's less fear and less negativity.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. It's just that we don't teach that collectively to
No,
people.
we don't. We don't. And that's challenging. I mean, we don't learn that in school either.
Yeah.
We don't
Well,
learn that
that's it.
anywhere. Life
We don't
teaches
learn
us
it
this.
anywhere. Well, and look at all the things that are going on around us. If you sit back and analyze everything that's going on in politics, it's all about fear. People are selling fear,
Oh, yeah.
and they're not helping to encourage us to step back and look at things. Or on television, advertisements are oftentimes all about fear.
It really is.
Beware of your car light or engineering light or your car motor light coming on, so get this warranty now. And it's all about fear.
It really is. It's all about fear, and I really stay away from politics as much as possible. I don't listen to the news if I really try to remain as focused in the present moment because
Yeah.
any politics or anything that's going to steer someone towards fear, it's either living in the past or living in the future, and it's not living currently right now. Like right specifically right now with you and I chatting, Michael, there is no fear right now. There's
Mm-hmm.
only connection, and because of we're connecting because of the love for humanity.
I do watch the news every day, but I do it because I want to know what's going on in the world. And I can do that without fear. I've learned, I've read enough to understand the need for conversation, to understand the need to connect.
That's
And
true,
so
Michael.
for me, what is just amazing is how many people have forgotten how to do that. I mean, but I grew up needing to connect and was taught how to do that by my parents. And I think that's extremely important. And I wish that we taught it more today than we do.
I love that you can do that, Michael. I think I'm not in a place in my life where I can listen to negative news, and then it not come with me and kind of start steering me in a negative, in a negative
Mm,
direction. So
mm-hmm.
that's where I'm at right now, and
Yeah.
mostly because my mother. I'll give you an example. My mother watches the news every day, and she gets in that negative loop. She'll be like, "Oh, don't do this because this, or there's this killer
Yeah.
going around, or this and this might happen." And I have to tell her. Sometimes I get very short tempered, and I say, "You know what? You need to stop watching the news."
Yeah.
And so that really steers me away from watching it. If she was able to deviate from not being so absorbed about it, and I saw more of the positive aspects of it, I probably would watch it or listen to it a little more. But for me personally, I try to steer away as far as
Yeah.
possible.
And I fully understand that.
Yeah.
And for me, as I said, it's a source of information. But if I start letting it get to me, whatever
Yeah.
it is, then that's the time not to watch it anymore.
Right.
And
Right.
and very frankly, I love having a good part of the day where there's nothing going on. My wife passed away last November after we were married for 40 years, so it's me in the house, and I have a person who helps part time, but I value silence, and I think that we really need to value and get more of that because, again, if we don't have that silence, then we don't spend any time thinking and becoming analytical and really reflecting on our lives and what we need to do to improve and so on.
I agree with you. I love being in silence myself, and I do it very often.
Yeah, it's valuable to do. We don't always need to have something going on. And I will have something on. I collect old radio shows as a hobby, and I also listen to internet stations that do radio, and I listen to other things as well. But If I'm going to have something on, it's going to be reading a book or listening to old radio shows. And I will watch news for a little bit during the day, but it's not something that is a major driving force that I have to do. And certainly I'm not going to let it affect me. But I have control over that. I have control over whether I let it affect me or not, which is
I
the
love
point.
that. Definitely. That is the point. Exactly.
Yeah. So it really works out well, I think.
It sounds
Well,
like it.
I hope so anyway.
I
So
believe so.
does fear, however, talking about fear like that, does fear serve a purpose?
I believe that fear steers you in the direction of what needs healing and what needs attention. And it really depends also on the type of fear. If it's a fear of being attacked, of your well-being, perhaps that's more of an intuition for safety. And if it is a fear based on emotions, that can be a really good indicator of things that need attention to, for example, shadow work or things that need to be released, things that need attention in order for you to progress yourself as a mind, body, and soul in this one human life that we're experiencing. So fear definitely has a purpose.
Well, and if you're afraid of something like fear of being attacked and so on, it really is important to spend a little bit of time looking at why do I feel that way? And that's what most of us don't
Yes.
do. We just live in the fear rather than living in the real cause or what can be the real result. We don't look at that.
I love how you said that. Why do I feel this way? I mean, not that many people ask themselves that question. As you said, they just live in reaction.
Yeah, it's all about reaction, isn't it?
It is. It really is. It really is.
And it's unfortunately getting a lot worse. We're getting a lot more reactive in things that we do. Look at drivers today. I am absolutely ready for the time. Some of your people are going to hate me for it, but I am absolutely ready for the time when we have fully operating and running well autonomous vehicles, because I think it's high time to get the driving out of the hands of drivers.
That's coming soon. Coming very soon.
Yeah, it's going to come pretty soon. It'll take a little while yet, but drivers are just not being responsible at all. And I've been in the car with many people who are driving and they complain about people on the road and people who hog the road, people who just pass them. I was in a vehicle going to an airport and all of a sudden this motorcycle, actually, I guess it was only one, passed us, and the driver said, "I cannot believe what just happened. We were in a lane, there was a car next to us, and this motorcycle threaded its way through, and the driver said there had to be no more than an inch on either side."
Oof.
But he was in a hurry and he passed us. I mean, he was really moving quickly and
That's
passed
crazy.
us. I'm going, give me a break. Why?
Right. Yeah, the rage,
Something
crazy,
anyway.
impatientness.
Yeah. And it happens all too often.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
how did you get into this whole idea of thinking a lot about fear and making that kind of a basic part of what you do and what you think about and what you practice in psychology?
Well, the reason I got into fear was because of my fear whether or not I was going to live with this genetic disease, whether or not I was going to make it. And I realized that I had fears, constant fears, fears of the female that I was, fears that I wasn't being authentic, fears that I had this disease that I was going to die young. Everything was fear, 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 fear. And every time I overcame an obstacle, aka a fear, I realized, oh, one less fear. Oh, one less fear. One less fear. And every time there was a less fear, I started to gain a momentum of more happiness and more joy and more and realizing that there actually is a way to succeed in life. And I don't mean a diploma. I mean to succeed in
Mm-hmm.
life into finding growth, personal growth, expansion, and opportunity within yourself.
And so you have made that a mainstay of a lot of the things that you do, needless to say.
Oh yeah, and then even recently, just going through somewhat of a separation with my girlfriend. We're all like in a little separated mode right now, and even in the separation mode, a lot of fears that I wasn't faced with before were coming up. It's been about a month, and these fears that I haven't been faced with ever, because before when I'd separated with somebody, I think maybe the type of separation that I had before, I it was just a different period of my life. And in this period of my life, I started to feel having these emotional fears that I hadn't experienced before, such as I'm unlovable or I'm not deserving of love. Or where are these fears coming from? Why am I feeling these things? That's not true. These are untrue. All these fears that we tell ourselves, none of it's true. We're all deserving and we're all worthy of love. So where do these fears come from? So I've been digging into a lot of these fears and how I'm feeling and trying to break through them, get past them so that I can continue to grow on the path that I was even before the relationship. But it's really posing a lot of obstacles in which I am overcoming because today I can smile and 2 days ago I couldn't. So yeah, it's fears present themselves in many different ways, shapes, and forms.
How do you work through it? How do you work yourself to get beyond some of those fears?
Well, I write a lot, and I think a lot, and I meditate a lot, and I write a lot of poetry.
Mm.
And in my poetry, I can give you an example. Poetry really helps me, and I can read to you one of my poems here. It helps me discover what is inside me and what I'm fearing and where is their light. So a poem that I wrote last night, it says, "The dim night lights up with the full moon, ready for a fresh start and a new beginning. Emerging after a rebirth was necessary. And I still feel the heat of your breath on my skin, the way our love emerged after an eclipse of the heart." So when I write, it releases fears, it releases stagnant energy within my body, and I'm able to then see things in a different type of light. And also meditating, I do spend a lot of alone time. I do take a lot of baths, and in this alone time with baths, I sometimes I listen to meditative hertz frequency music to heal my cells, and I do self affirmations,
Mhm.
starting with the I am statements: I am love, I am worthy, I am deserving, and then moving up from after I feel worthy, I feel loving, I feel deserving. Moving up from feel, you go with the I do statements. I do believe that I am worthy, I do believe that I am love. Moving up from I do to I love myself. I love unconditionally. Means no. When you love unconditionally, Michael, that means that you love with with no conditions involved. Meaning that you
Right.
simply just love for loving. It's because love is not a transaction. So I go with I love my mother. I love myself. I love my friends. I love this bathtub. I love right now. After I love, I move up to my throat chakra, and the throat chakra is the speaking, the I speak. And so then I say, I speak words of love. I speak words of unconditional love. I speak uh, worthiness. I speak deserving. After that, I go to I see. I see love all around me. I see happiness all around me. I see joy. Then after that, I go to understand. I understand. I understand that I am deserving. I understand that I am love. I understand that I'm unconditional love. I understand that I can give the same love to everybody else that I give to myself. And so when I move up my body with all of these statements, it brings me into an alignment and realizing that I'm okay. I'm okay, and I'm going to be okay.
And none of that is conceit in any way. I mean, there's nothing wrong with loving yourself and loving other people, as long as you are truly loving. I mean, there are plenty of people around who are conceited. I'm the greatest thing in the world. There's a difference in saying I'm the greatest thing in the world
Sure.
and believing it from a philosophical standpoint. Yeah, it's just amazing how oftentimes we miss some of the very things that you're talking about, which I think is great that you're able to go through that process and really love and respect yourself and come out the other side better, much better for it.
Absolutely. Yeah, because if somebody comes with the attitude of I'm the greatest thing in the world, there's actually some fear attached to that, not love. Because if you're
Mm-hmm.
saying you're the greatest thing of the world, that means that you aren't any lower than anybody else. And if somebody's saying they're not lower than anybody else, they're already having fear that they could potentially be lower than someone else. And if that were to happen, they wouldn't be the greatest thing in the world. So when it comes from true love, there's no judgment attached to it. When you just say I'm unconditional love, that means I love myself without any conditions, and in doing that, I can see everybody for who they are without any conditions.
Right. And that's the real point, isn't it? Unconditional.
Exactly. Exactly. Because when it's not unconditional, you're trying to control the situation so that it matches what's going to make you happy. And in that case, it ends up being manipulative.
Have you ever read a book called, it's a little book, The Greatest Thing in the World is Love by Henry Drummond?
No, no, but I got to get this.
He's a British philosopher, and I think he was with a group, and they asked him to talk about, I forget how it started. I think they asked him to talk about love. And he took a Bible and he read a couple of lines from Ephesians and so on. And basically what he did was lectured for about 15 or 20 minutes, and it got written into this book, and there are other lectures in there as well. But that love is the greatest thing in the world. And there is a lot of evidence to prove that. And the people who truly love and who truly are willing to love are going to be the ones who recognize that first, as long as they live by it.
I love
And of
that.
course, he talks about God, and that's fine, because that's all part of it, because that's where the love originally comes from.
Exactly. Yeah, and that that sounds amazing. It sounds like a little book that I'm gonna have to definitely
Yeah.
definitely get. I think also right now you mentioned God. I think that a lot of people steer away from when they hear God because they think that God is as a human being rather than an energy, rather than a force of energy. So when I think of God, I think of the universe. I think of higher consciousness. I think of all that unites us because we're all universally connected and we can all communicate telepathically, and we do. And that is where true essence of God lies, higher consciousness.
And we are all part of it, and it is all part of us. God is part of us, and we are all part of the same thing. And it's so unfortunate that we miss that. A lot of organized religion tends to not really teach some of those things. And I went to a church and attended for years, and the pastor said, people are at this church are really great at knowing about spirituality. They can intellectually talk about it, but as far as being spiritual, as far as really having that true emotional relationship with God, they don't.
I agree with you. And that is because of organized religion. That is more of a control factor rather than free will.
Yeah. And I hope that somewhere on the line we can get beyond some of that. And I think we will. I don't
I
know
think
what
it's
it will
headed that way,
take.
Michael.
Go ahead.
I feel it's headed that way.
Yeah,
Hmm.
we'll get there.
Yeah, because what I've noticed, mostly on social media, actually, where there's a lot of, I almost said the word kids, but I'm gonna say kids because people in their
They act like
20s.
it.
If I see people in their 20s, to me, I mean, to me, they're very young, and but these young-minded individuals in their 20s, I'm noticing are very spiritual,
Hmm.
and a lot more spiritual than I was in my 20s. I wasn't spiritual at all. I wouldn't. God, what are you talking about? God, I'm going to hell. I'm a sinner. So these
I'll
people, they're
teach
not.
you.
Yeah, they're not thinking like this anymore. I'm seeing the evolution happen. It's an evolution, and it's really beautiful.
It is, and I think it will continue. I think that people are, and young people are going to be leading the way. Are discovering that there's a whole lot more to the world than all this hatred. And I hope it won't take overly long for some of those people to get into positions to stop some of the nonsense that we see all around us. I was fortunate. My father was very spiritually oriented, and we had a lot of conversations about God when I was growing up. I did some with my mother, but my dad was really the one. And he was a great thinker about a lot of those things. So I was blessed by having someone who encouraged having strong relationships in terms of um, loving myself, but loving God and recognizing that God is in all of us and what God is.
I love that. Yeah, it's really important to have these discussions with your children. Definitely helps them open up and feel things differently and expand their mind and not close up their heart or their mind.
Well, we've talked about it a little bit, but maybe you could define in a little bit more detail what really is self love, since we know it's not being conceited and all that stuff.
Hmm. It's a really good question. So self-love can look different to everybody. My personal experience, self-love came from accepting who I am and who I've become and who I am becoming. And also comes from forgiveness, forgiving your past, forgiving past pains, and learning lessons. And when you can learn the lesson and forgive the pain, forgive the past, you gain love and you gain joy. And self love is also joy. When you find what brings you joy, what makes you laugh, what helps you connect with other people, that's all self love. Self love is also spending time with yourself, alone time, or even talking to yourself, doing things that you love to do, not what other people love to do, but you yourself, what do you love to do? And also telling yourself you love yourself. And this can be really difficult, especially if you're having a bad day. And I can tell you because I had many bad days this last month after this separation. But I keep at it, Michael. I'll keep at it, and I'll keep telling myself before I go to bed, I love you, Lino. I love you. And even if I say it with tears or a knot in my throat, I'll still keep at it, and I'll keep telling myself because I know that inside I am loved and that God loves me. And if God loves me, why wouldn't I love me? And so it's just a constant reminder, constant push that we're made to love. We're here in this life to love ourselves and to give the same love to others. So self-love can look as beautiful as learning how to grow within, as even eating something that you love, or even learning something new, a new activity, doing something healthy for yourself, even the people that you hang out with. Who are you hanging out with? Self love looks like hanging out with people that increases your peace. If people are not bringing you peace, it's probably time to move around, move that energy around, refocus on who brings you peace and what's going to bring you peace. And when you start bringing peace to yourself, peace will start navigating towards you naturally.
I like the way you put that and that you talk about peace because we we oftentimes go down these rabbit holes and we don't come back to, wait, what's going on? I'm not feeling peace. I'm not feeling confident, or I'm not feeling certain. Why is that? And
Exactly.
going back to recognizing what it was like yesterday when I did feel all those things.
I love how you said that again, asking yourself these questions. It's so important to be asking yourself these questions because you will get an answer. A lot of
Oh,
people
yeah.
don't. And then there you go. And you know what, Michael? That's self love right there.
Mm-hmm.
Self love is asking yourself questions. Start a relationship with yourself. I can tell the audience this. If you have not done this yourself and you don't know where to start, you can start by having conversations with yourself, sitting in a quiet space and seeing what comes through. What kind of answers comes to your mind when you ask yourself these questions? That's spending time with yourself, quality time with yourself, and that's self love as well.
I love to tell people that, as I mentioned earlier, my wife passed this past November after 40 years of marriage. And as I tell people, if I misbehave, I know I'm going to hear about it. So I have to stay on the straight and narrow. Uh,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
believe
for
it.
40 years of marriage is a great thing. And
Oh, it sounds
I
beautiful.
still value everything that we had. And as far as I am concerned, really do have. So I know that if I misbehave in some horrible way, I'm going to hear about it somewhere along the line.
I'm sure you will.
That's all I need. So, and I'm not going to say I'm living in fear because of it, but but it really is love,
It
because I
is.
know what we had and why we had it, and maintaining that mindset is really so important.
It really is, Michael. Thank you for
So
sharing.
you talked about people talking with themselves and really interacting with themselves. What other
Mhm.
advice can you give to help someone who maybe wants to start really learning more about themselves?
If somebody wants to learn more about themselves and doesn't know how to start or where to start, I do recommend journaling. I know it sounds cliche, but it helps so many people. It helps
Mm-hmm.
millions, billions of people to journal. Even if you're not a good writer, you don't have to be a good writer. If you could even speak it in your notes. You don't have to write. You could just speak it in your phone and just kind of keep a memorandum. Is that the right word? Memorandum?
That's fine.
Sure.
It works.
Of your personal journey, and start asking yourself questions, start giving yourself the opportunities for different choices and things in your life. What have you been interested in your life that you haven't done yet? Well, you know what, I I want to take this road trip here. I've never done that before. Okay, well, let's write this down. Let's talk about this. And what does this road trip feel like? What would it signify for me? Oh, that I stepped out of my comfort zone, that I was able to be exploratory, that I was able to see a different path and meet new people. And perhaps maybe even now I want to move to a different city because I travel. I mean, there's just so much expansion when you start coming up with these ideas within yourself. And so I would first start with journaling because so much comes out of it when you start to journal and talk to yourself and ask yourself questions and come up with these ideas. Creativity will be your guide. Creativity will be your North Star, your navigation tool. And we all have an inner navigation star. We all have this North Star within us. And it wants to navigate us. We just have to ask. We have to ask. It's as easy as asking.
Well, and I think that the whole issue of journaling also means go back and read it and think about what you've written too.
Exactly. I've left myself a lot of memo notes as well, voice notes, and I'll go back and listen to this. Oh, today I wanted to. Oh, whoa. But you know what? Actually, Michael, what I did last night, I was cleaning out my office and I found some notes of some things that I wanted to accomplish this year. And that's another thing that I can recommend for people as well, getting to know yourself and getting to know what you want to do. Give yourself some, and I try not to say the word goals because there tends to be a lot of negativity with goal. But if you don't reach your goal, there might be some fear in that. So rather than reaching a goal, just write yourself stuff that you want to do and make it sound that easy. Stuff that I want to do.
Yeah.
And if you don't do it, that's fine because it's just stuff. But either way, if you get the stuff done and you can go back and reflect and say, hey, I did that stuff. It felt great. And so I was able to go back and say, wow, so far it's been 6 months into the year and I've done this stuff. And so far I feel great that I've done this stuff or that I've completed this task. And so, yeah, make it fun. Have fun with it.
The other side of it and the other aspect that's worth considering is you took some notes. You wanted to do this stuff and you look at them in 6 months, you didn't do some stuff. It's also fair to go, why didn't I do that stuff?
Yeah, right? Yes.
And it doesn't necessarily, as you said, mean it's a bad thing that you didn't, but why didn't you? Were you afraid? Or was there really something else that came up that was a more important bunch of stuff to do, which is also just as okay? I understand the whole concept of the issues with goals. So just writing down direction and writing down ideas that you want to do is fine. Goals, there's a place for goals and things that you have to do, but a lot of things aren't goals. And so it is a fair thing to then say, why didn't I do that?
Yeah, you know why I like that as well? Because why didn't I do that can lead you all kinds of different directions. You could
Yeah,
even say, hey, I never really even wanted to do that. I didn't really want to do that, I guess. And you can even figure out if that's something that you want to revisit and whether or not you want to try it again or just let it go.
that's right. It gives you a discussion point, which is what it's really all about, which is, I think, really the
Yeah.
issue, right? So
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with discussing, and then you can talk to yourself. And as you
Right.
said, you will get answers. Yeah, that's the other part about it, I think, and it goes back to talking about God.
Hmm.
We talk about prayer a lot. Churches talk about prayer a lot, but the reality is God knows what we want. It isn't so much that we have to tell God what we want because God knows, but verbalizing it or putting it in some form for us, the other aspect of that is listening and looking for the response. And it may not come exactly what in the way that we think or how we think, but we should be looking for a response. And I say pretty much invariably, we'll get the response somewhere.
The response definitely comes to us, and one thing that I've learned too is to not obsess over getting an answer,
Right.
because when you start to obsess over getting an answer, you create a resistance, and a resistance holds up a lot of energy in your space. And when this resistance is holding up a lot of filling up your space with tangled energy, you're disallowing what's supposed to come to you naturally. And so part of this is releasing a lot of resistance, and that could be challenging as well.
There is something to the old adage, a watched pot never boils.
Yeah.
Just
Right,
just
right,
just saying.
right.
So I've learned that when I turn my tea kettle on in the morning, don't stand there and wait for it to boil. Go do other things. And when it boils, you'll hear.
You will hear it. Yes, absolutely. I love that.
But there is something to be said for that.
It really is.
What has struggle taught you?
Struggle has taught me a lot, Michael. So when I was struggling and come again, I mean, I'm still in some struggling in some certain emotional parts of my life right now because of just what I'm kind of just overcoming right now.
Mm-hmm.
But struggle for me when I did think of struggling before was me struggling physically in pain. But one thing that I learned, and this is because I practiced Buddhism for about 5 years, and our monk taught us that just because you are struggling or because you are suffering, it doesn't mean you have to be in pain. And when he said that, it really struck a beautiful chord within me, and it made me realize that, hey, you know what? That's my body is suffering. I am in pain. I do feel this, but I don't have to be in pain overall. Overall, I can think happy thoughts. Overall, there's connection all around me. Overall, if I sit here with my true self, my inner being, I'm okay and I'm gonna be okay. And when you start to see in the eyes of see when you start to look at pain as an opportunity to transform pain into wisdom and love, you start to see that anything can be transformed. And so that is really what I learned with with struggling with a lot of pain and realizing that pain can be transformed because pain is just energy, and all energy can be transformed. And energy is not either positive or negative; it's neutral. And so if I can transform it into something beautiful, wise, and into love, why not choose the latter?
Yeah. There's no reason not to do that.
Hmm.
There's physical pain and of course, as doctors and others tell us, pain is a warning. There's a message about something with your body. But even that is a subset of the more general spiritual or emotional pain that we do have the ability to deal with,
Right, absolutely.
which is so cool.
It's,
Well, you've talked about the fact that you value silence and so on. What has silence taught you?
so my value from being silent came from when I lost my voice for almost 3 years. And at first, it was very difficult, but I accepted that there was a chance that I would never speak again. And when I accepted that, I started to go inward more and see more of within my own light, my own personality, my own wants and desires. And that's really where the beauty started to blossom. It's almost as if my higher self said, hey, I'm going to shut you up and you're going to be completely silent in order for you to go inside within and really find the beauty within yourself. And one that silent really taught me to calm down, ease anxiety, be patient, and just allow things to unfold naturally. And that's what silence teaches me even now when I am in silence. Learn to appreciate the moment, the solitude, and allow the universe to naturally show you and unfold things for you because everything's happening in a synchronistic manner.
So you've been going through the whole business of having a relationship and it's kind of stopped for a while. And I don't know whether that's permanent or not, but um, what what have you learned from that and also having silence again in your life like that?
That's a beautiful, beautiful question. Honestly, I really feel that I'm meant to be with this woman. And what for whatever reasons, whether it's trauma, whether it's insecurities that caused us to be in this non-communicative, I guess the buzzword is being ghosted.
Um,
But I do feel that we have a really strong spiritual connection, and that what we had was very authentic. It was very soulful, spiritual, and very loving. And whatever the separation means right now at the moment, I can tell you right now that it means growth. Because I have grown so much in this last month, going inward and going silent. I have meditated more than I ever have. I've taken more walks than I ever have. I've taken more baths by myself, listening to meditative music than I ever have. And I was able to, in this just last month, really ask myself where my fears were stemming from. What if I never hear from her again? What does that mean? And again, asking those questions, Michael. Well, what does that mean? Right away, the fear would started to
Hmm.
show up that I'm unlovable or I'm undeserving. But none of that's true. But where did this originate? You know where it originated, and that I realized is growing up with alcoholic family. And growing up with an alcoholic family, parents are not usually present when that happens, when they're drunk. So as a kid, I didn't really fully have present parents emotionally. And so when somebody ghosts me, it started to remind me of my childhood when family members would ignore me because they were busy hitting the bottle rather than paying attention to their kid. And I started to realize, well, this isn't the same situation, and this isn't true. And so, in going that, I constantly have to rewind and say, and rewire my brain, and even go back to that timeline and forgive myself for my survival skills that I had to go through in order to survive emotionally and mentally as a little kid, and really gravitate towards learning how to feel safe within myself and not receiving the love that I needed as a little kid. But I mean, I've learned so much, and I wouldn't have been able to admit this even just 2 months ago because I wasn't aware of it. So going silent and her ghosting me, which is silence, and also me ghosting, and I'm sorry, and also me going silent with myself, I'm able to go inward and realize what needs healing. Because should I get back into this relationship or should I go into another relationship, I now know what needs attention and what needs work, and what part of my body and mind, body, and soul needs more love.
Well, and if you really feel you have that deep of a spiritual relationship with her, do you reach back out to her, or what happens?
And that is a great question. You know
That's a
what? I
good
was
question.
reaching out with her. Yeah, I was. The reason why, and the reason why we broke up. She literally told me that she cannot give me the same love that I give her in return.
Mm.
But then I started realizing, and that she could only be friends. And this was literally a month ago. But when that happened, I felt a few things, and all of this was solved. All of these answers came again from being alone, and this is why when listeners listening to this, whoever's going through a breakup, don't be afraid to go inward. When you go inward and ask yourself questions, ask yourself a million questions. You will get answers, and as much as it hurts, you're gonna plow through it, and you're gonna have an incredible self discovery. So in my self discovery, I realized we're all mirrors of each other. There are things, aspects about you, Michael, that I have in common with. There's aspects about anybody that I come in contact with that I have in common with. We're all mirrors of each other. And so when she felt that she couldn't give me the love, and I can't speak for her because I'm not her, but
Sure.
I can feel. And what I felt at the moment as well when she said that, and she left, I felt at that moment, well, geez, that must mean that I'm undeserving and I'm unloving. And then I realized, but wait, she's the one saying that by saying she can't give me the same love that I give in return. That message is the same message. She's saying I'm undeserving, I'm unloving, and therefore I can't give you that much love. But I'm also feeling the same way. And so, and I started to reach out to her shortly after the breakup, within a week, and it was text messaging, "How are you?" And she was responsive. And I must have texted within the last month maybe about 4 or 5 times when she did respond. However, I finally realized 2 weeks ago, you know what? It's time for her to reach out to me, because at this point, it's not self love anymore. At this point, when you start filling up someone else's cup and pushing them to communicate, you're taking love away from yourself. And so I needed to go back and fill my own cup. And because it was bringing me down. Why is it me reaching out? Why am I always the one reaching out? Well, you know what? I also need to give her the benefit of the doubt that she's also growing, and that she's learning, and that she's going to get stronger, and that she does have the ability and the capability to reach out to me and communicate. I'm not going to give her I'm not going to doubt her growth either. And
Mhm.
so I'm giving her the opportunity to come to me when she's ready. And because I have no doubt in the love that we've experienced together. We didn't have a toxic relationship. There were simple traumas. And whenever there's trauma versus toxicity, you can work through traumas. You can learn to love each other, and through love, grow and expand and understand where there needs more attention.
Yeah. And the reality is, of course, that the love that she gives you is different than the love that you give her anyway, because you're two different beings. And then it's a matter of figuring out
Yes.
how to blend those. And clearly that's part of what you're hoping that she will work on, and or come to realize, and you'll be able to get back together.
Absolutely, Michael. And I'm not going to deny that there's been thoughts recently like, oh, it's been 2 weeks since I reached out. Should I reach out? But there's this nagging voice inside me that says, allow her, give her. She is strong enough. because in me doing so, there's a lot of things that I'm not allowing. I'm not allowing her to grow if I come in and keep kind of like intruding into these unspoken energetic boundaries. And in doing that, it's also manipulative in a way, even if it's not intended to be that way. It's, hang on a minute, I'm feeling bad, I'm feeling sad, let me get a hold of you, I miss you. Rather than, you know what, how about I trust the situation and trust that we're both growing and that there's still love within our distance.
Yeah. And hopefully it works out. You'll figure it out. I have no doubt about that. And the right solution will come along, whatever it happens to be.
I believe that, Michael. Thank you.
What other advice might you have for anyone else who may be suffering or feeling challenged in one way or another?
Such a good question, because so many, I mean, everybody, there's so much suffering going on in this world.
Yeah, don't watch the news. I know, but
You know, pay attention to your feelings, because all your feelings are messages. And as negative as it can feel, and as daunting as it could be, it can always be turned into something beautiful. Even grief, even in the grief of losing someone, there's always beauty in grief. And when you can turn pain and sorrow into beauty, that's where all the magic starts to happen. And don't give up. There's no reason to give up. There's also, people need to understand that there's no failure um, at all. There's only clarifying things in this world. You can't fail. There's only things that are constantly showing you clarification. And also, success is not final, and also failure is not fatal. So as long as you know that success is not final, you're gonna always be striving to do something else or feel something else, and that's okay. There's a flexibility, a flow of life, an ebb and flow, and just like the ocean waves, they come back and they back and forth. We're the same way. The same beauty that Earth possess, we possess within ourselves.
I think it was in the Henry Drummond book that I mentioned, one of his lectures. He talked about the fact that teachers can teach a lot of things, but really the only person who can teach you is you. You're your own real teacher. Everything else is information or concepts, but you have to teach it to yourself. And that has taught me to learn to realize that, in fact, I am my own best teacher. I have now learned not to say I'm my own worst critic anymore. I always said, I didn't, and I don't journal a lot as such, but whenever I give a speech, I like to record it, and then I can go back and listen to it and improve. And I've realized that it's not being my own worst critic. It's my faith and my recognition that I'm my own best teacher. I get to listen to it and hear what happened, and I can go on thinking, could I have done that better? Was it as good as it could be? Or how can I make the best part even better? And that's only something that I can do. No one else can do it. So I am a firm believer, and I'm my own best teacher.
I totally agree with you. I love how you said that. How can I make the best better?
Yeah.
I love that.
And maybe the answer is it's as good as it can possibly be, but it's
Sure.
okay to ask yourself,
Yeah, absolutely.
which is what it's really about. Well, this has been fun, but if people want to reach out to you and learn more from you, I don't know whether in the things that you do you work virtually or just in person?
Do I work virtually?
Doing, you've got a doctorate in psychology. Do you have any kind of practice, or do you coach or teach people?
Yeah, actually, I'm a professor in psychology, and
There you go.
this fall I'm teaching. It's called psychodynamic theory, and so I'm not teaching right now in the fall. I mean, I'm sorry, in the summertime. Well, actually, I did teach the summer, but summer session ended a month ago. So right now I'm podcasting full time. I'm doing two interviews. I'm one interview. I'm sorry, two interviews a week and releasing two episodes a week. And so I'm pretty busy doing that, and I love it. And I also write poetry. I'm very busy on social media, and I'm just keeping my mind, body, and soul occupied.
Well, if people want to reach out to you
Yes.
or learn about you, how do they do that, including with the podcast and so on?
Yes, all of my information's on my
All the
website.
stuff.
Everything's on my website at www.alittlelessfear.com. And if you'd like to email me with any inquiries, that's a little less fear at gmail.com.
The ubiquitous, ever-present Gmail.
Yeah, right.
Well, and there's a lot to be said for a little less fear. So I really appreciate you pushing that and really promoting it. I think we need to have a little less and a lot less fear. And the more that we can do of that, the better we'll all be for it. So I want to thank you again, Lino Martinez, for being here. So I almost did it. But I really appreciate you coming and being with us today. And hopefully things will go well. You need to keep in touch and let us know how things go. And if you want to come back and do this some more, then we really would appreciate that. And I am looking forward to being with you later in the month.
Michael, I would love to keep in touch and be on your show again. Thank you for having me and for allowing me to speak my truth. I really appreciate your presence, and I look forward to having you on my podcast.
Well, thank you. And for those of you listening, if you'd like to reach out, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. Please email me at michaelhi@accessibe.com or go to www.michaelhingson.com/podcast. Wherever you're listening, please give us a 5-star review. And as I've told Leeno, and I'll mention again to all of you, if you know of anyone else who we ought to have as a guest, or if you'd like to come on Unstoppable Mindset, I believe everyone has stories to tell and has things to say. And I want you to come on and talk with us and tell us your thoughts. So please do that. Reach out. Love to hear from you. And we will move forward and connect. And so one last time again, Leeno, I really appreciate you being here with us again today.
It's been an honor, and it's been my pleasure. Thank you, Michael.